sorts of good things, and hopefully not just giving you, my opinions on things, but hopefully giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they are the same or a little bit different than mine, which is totally okay and actually encouraged. Good to have you guys here. Big day for me today. Going to go out with Anne's family. Of course, is my family as well. We've got a new tradition that we started last year. Going to a local, because Anne's mom loves the casino. So we've started this new tradition last year where instead of going through a lot of effort on Thanksgiving, we go to Anne's mom's favorite casino where they have the big restaurant, and we just eat Thanksgiving Day food there, and then they play slots for a good part of the rest of the day. And you know what? The food was actually pretty good. There. So I'm kind of looking forward to going back. And then, of course, a lot of football today. And guys, there's a lot of stuff for us to talk about here today. Now, today's episode is really going to be more like an open mic, to be honest with you. So the super chats are open. We're going to take some questions from the tip link that people have sent in, all that kind of stuff. More of a laid back, relaxed Thanksgiving, helping you guys get ready for those annoying family members that are going to come over and join you today. So let's have a little bit of fun here, shall we? Now, before we get to all the questions that you guys have been sending in, I had to talk about this because this is crazy. This story that I read this morning about a director. Remember that movie 47 Ronin with Keanu Reeves? Not a very good movie, bombed, lost a ton of money. Well, for some reason, Netflix agreed to let him do a show. And let me look up the name of the show here. It was something like called Complex or something like that. I can't remember. It's in the article that we'll get to in just a second here. But they gave him $61 million to create a show. Oh, it was going to be called Conquest. And they gave him like $66 million to make this show. And he must also be the producer and the head of the production company, because normally, Netflix doesn't hand a check to the director. They hand it to the producers. So he must have also been acting as the producer on this. Anyway. And instead of spending that money on the show, he decided to go and spend it on some sports cars and some crypto for himself. It's strange. It's really strange. So let's go. This is from Business Insider. The headline reads, Netflix handed a director millions to make a sci-fi series, but he squandered it on stocks, crypto, and flashy sports car. And that comes from the New York Times. So, and by the way, I see some people mentioning that, right now the image is being blown out. That is because it is 9 a.m. and the sun is not quite out of range of my window. It will be in a few minutes. So right now, watch, if I block the sun, look at that. So the sun, we are never live this time of day. The sun is literally coming in right on my face, but in any moment now, the sun will be out of range and we'll be back to normal. Anyway, let's get back to the thing here. So Netflix handed director millions to make sci-fi series, but he squandered it on stocks, crypto, and flashy cars. Now, before we get into the details here, the way he got caught is also pretty funny. Apparently, if I understand the story correctly, his wife is divorcing him. And, when you go through a divorce, you have to split up the assets. Well, I guess she didn't believe how much money he said he had and what he did with it. So she hired what's called a forensic accountant. And what forensic accountants do is that they're accountants on steroids. They will go through all your financial history and they will find out what happened to that quarter that you found on the sidewalk 7 years ago. So his wife, soon to be ex-wife, if I understand the story right, hired a forensics accountant to go through his finances and discovered all this stuff. So let's get back over to the story here. I told you it was crazy. Okay. So it picks up with this. It's Carl Eric Rinch. I hope I'm pronouncing it. I've only ever read his name. I've never spoken his name. So Rinch, the director of 47 Ronin, took millions of dollars that Netflix gave him for his sci-fi series to play the stock and cryptocurrency markets, the New York Times reported. The 46-year-old director scored $61.2 million production deal from Netflix for a sci-fi series, the Times' John Campea reported on Wednesday, citing a November 2018 term sheet. The Times reported that Netflix had sunk $44.3 million into Rinch's show Conquest by March of 2020, but that Rinch then told the streaming company that he needed more money or the production would cease. Netflix acceded to Rinch's request and gave his production money. He gave his production company an additional $11 million. Okay, so it already starts off strange. He says, I need $44 million to make this show. Great, here's $44 million. 2 years pass. You don't get anything yet. And then he comes back and says, hey, yeah, I need another $11 million or we're never going to be able to fix this thing. Okay, now this is where it gets really strange. But that money wasn't all spent on producing the series. Rinch instead used $10.5 million from Netflix's 2020 round of funding to play the stock market, the Times reported, citing court filings and financial documents from his divorce, and eventually lost $5.9 million in trading. Rinch then pivoted to the crypto market, the Times reported, but he was luckier this time. He bought Dogecoin. Remember that? I had actually bought a little bit of Dogecoin at the time. Buying Dogecoin turned Rinch $4 million into nearly $27 million. But of course, he didn't use that $27 million on the Netflix show. No. Rinch then spent $8.7 million on fancy cars and designer goods, the Times reported, citing the findings from a forensic accountant hired by Rinch's wife. Rinch reported purchases included a Ferrari and 5 Rolls Royces. Despite spending more than $55 million on Rinch's series, Netflix is yet to receive any episodes from the director. And I read a quote in IGN where Netflix is basically made a statement saying, yeah, we understand we're never going to see that show. We're just going to have to write it off. We just understand we're never going to see the show. The guy ripped us off, took our money. Now, I don't know what's going to happen behind the scenes, if they're going to mount a lawsuit against him to try to reclaim that money, if they should sue him for fraud. I mean, you take the money and you spend it on other things, and that's fraud because you represent to the company, give me this money, I'm going to use it to make you a show, but you take that money and use it for something else. That's fraud. That is capital F-U fraud. And so I don't know what's going to happen as a result of this. The guy is clearly going to be in trouble. And if the report coming from, his divorcee's, accountant is true, no one's ever going to work with this guy again. Like, this guy's done in this business, like completely done. And I'm actually going to tell you a story. I'm not going to say names to protect the innocent, but I was friends with the producer dude, and he was involved with a project. He wasn't the main producer, but he was a producer on this thing. And he got entrusted with the funding, the money for this movie that they're making. I swear to God, this is a 100% true story. He was entrusted with money for making a movie. And instead of putting the money into the production accounts, he thought it would be a good idea to take that money to Vegas and see, because he had a surefire can't lose system in Vegas, of course, as everybody does. Everybody has a surefire can't lose system in Vegas, right? Everybody's got one. And he went to Vegas and lost almost all the production money for this thing. And I'm not going to tell you what happens after that because it got really crazy. It involved drug deals and it involved a bunch of other things. But anyway, that's, and I thought of that this morning when I'm reading the story. It's like, because this is like now the second time I've heard of like literally a director or producer or filmmaker, or whatever, being given entrusted with a whole ton of money that you're supposed to use to shepherd making this movie or series or whatever. And they spent it on stuff, lost money on the stock market, then won some money on Dogecoin. That was short-lived. And then when he made money, instead of putting the money back into the production, spent it on himself, bought some new Ferraris, some Rolls Royces. It's amazing that his wife didn't trust him. and decided to divorce. I don't know. Somebody's saying, pitch that story. I'll watch that movie. No. I must protect the people whose name is involved there. I mean, I shouldn't protect them because they're frauds, but I'm not going to throw anybody on their bus here. Anyway, so I mean, this is a crazy story, and I am dying to find out what comes out as a result of this. I really, really am. But it also makes me wonder about the systems that should be in place. Like, money should be, especially somebody else's money, right? Like, if this dude, Rinch or whatever, however you pronounce his last name, if this 47 Ronin director was, like, this was his own project and he was financing it himself, you know what? Misappropriate your money all you want. It's your money. I mean, if you squander it and you blow it and your production fails as a result of it, whatever, that's all on you. You still shouldn't do that, but it's on you. It's your thing. But when it's somebody else's money, I think you need to take that extremely seriously and responsibly. I mean, look, I got a little bit of a reputation when I was running AMC for being cheap. And although even in real life, I'm very financially frugal. I mean, the reason I'm able to be financially independent is because since I was like 19 years old, I've been very, 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 very good with my money, right? Like, it was when I was like, I think it was when I was 21 that I decided I'm never going to use a credit card. It was around 21, 22, 23, 24, somewhere in that range that I decided that I will never buy something on credit. If I can't afford to pay for it right now, then that means I can't afford it. And that means I should just save my money. And I have spent the last 25 plus years making sure I am never in debt. And that often meant I had to live in a 0-bedroom, 400 square foot, a bachelor apartment. It meant I had to drive a 20-year-old busted down, seats torn car for a bunch of years. It meant all that kind of stuff. But you know, I am frugal when it comes to my money, but when it comes to somebody else's money, I take that very seriously. And so, like, when I was with AMC, I took trying to be responsible with their money. I tried to take that very, very seriously. And sometimes people thought me taking that seriously meant I was being overly cheap, and maybe I was at times. But I mean, I always try to be very careful, have several layers of safeguards when it comes to handling other people's money. And that's got to be taken seriously, especially in the world of Hollywood, man. And this dude, again, let me restate this, took the money that Netflix gave him to make a show and spent it on stocks, crypto, Rolls Royces, Ferraris, and now his wife is coming after him to get that money. Now his wife is coming after him to get some of that $27 million he made with the Dogecoin. And they're going to make a movie out of this. I mean, 100% guaranteed they're going to make a movie out of this at some point. So anyway, all right, guys, listen. We are now going to spend the rest of our day here taking your comments and questions. Now, the two different ways that you send in a comment or question to Open Mic, and again, today's episode of the John Campea Show is really being treated more like an open mic, but is by using our tip link, which you can find a link to that in the description below, by going to www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. So you can send one in that way when we're not live. If you are watching live, you can use the super chat feature and send in a question that way, and we'll get to just as many of those questions today as we can. All right, that down, guys. Let's get over and start taking some questions, shall we, on this Thanksgiving Day? And that is the wrong screen, so we will go over to this screen. An anonymous viewer writes, I remember Madam Web having the writers of Morbius because of you, John. You very much may have a video topic from over a year ago where you ranted about it heavily. Although, based on the trailer, I'm skeptical if the new writers are a big improvement, LOL. Somebody brought that up the other day, that about the Madam Web maybe having the writers of Morbius. And of course, Morbius was woof, didn't turn out so good. And it reminded me, because Jonathan later reminded me that I actually made a video about that over a year ago. It's weird because you got to remember, I make, not counting the questions that we take, I cover on average 5 topics a day. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 4, but let's say an average of 5 topics a day. And we do the show 5 days a week. So that's 25 a week. So about 100 topics a month. So that's about 1,200 topics a year. I do 1,200 segments a year. Am I doing my math right on that? I think I'm doing my math right on that, right? 5 a day, over 1 week is 25, over 1 month, 25 would be 100, and then over 12, 1,200. Yeah, I make about 1,200 segments a month. So sometimes I forget my own segments that I make. It happens. Anyway. Yeah, the Madam Web movie is one, the Madam Web movie is one that I am very interested in, because I honestly think it could go either way. Like, here's the thing. I love the concept of the movie, like kind of taking a Terminator storyline in a way and meshing that into a modern comic book story on screen, right? I really do like the concept of the film, and I really like a number of people involved with the film. But I liked the trailer. The one problem I had with the trailer, and this is the thing that makes me a little bit nervous, is that most of it was out of context. I acknowledge that. It was all that. It's just random audio clips that are out of context. Probably in context, it'll come across better. But in the trailer, most of the dialogue in the trailer, especially the narration by Dakota Johnson, sounded very wooden. And that's a little concerning to me, but we'll see how it turns out. All right. Chip Crisper writes, "Hey, John, with so much talk about World War Hulk lately, it got me thinking. It could work with a bit of a twist. Establish Scar, kill Bruce. Scar loses it. He has no connection to Earth, and we go butt wild. All hinges on his establishment, though. Bring on the filthy." I don't think that works. Nobody right now, absolutely nobody cares about Scar, and it's called World War Hulk, and Scar, like, part of the thing that makes World War Hulk such a compelling drama is that this is Hulk going against people that he had called friends. The members of the Illuminati were people that Bruce trusted and were allies. They had gone to war at each other's backs. They had, built years of trust. And that's a big part of what makes the drama of World War Hulk so important and so vital. To just say, let's flip it on its ear, let's take this character that we haven't heard one line of dialogue from and base this entire MCU spanning story, because that's what a World War Hulk would be. It would be an entire MCU spanning story, and basic on bowl cut, dopey looking kid Hulk. I don't think so. For me, I don't personally think that works, but it's just me. All right. Let's see. Next up, we go to Emilio, who writes, "Who should play He-Man? Don't care. Zac Efron has his exact look in the Iron Claw trailer." Yeah, me, ex-actor and ex-role. I don't really care. My main thing is that you just go out and get a good actor. Now, normally, I wouldn't really concern myself too awful much about body type and whatever, because, actors, give them 8 months with the right trainers and a bunch of horse steroids, and you can make them look like the way you want them to look. But with He-Man, yeah, you really do need somebody who's really big. You need somebody who's really, really big. And hopefully is a really good actor too. And, there are some suggestions were made the other day. I can't remember. Somebody mentioned a name that I really, really liked. I mean, we went through some of the usual suspects, like, okay, Dave Bautista, John Cena, Chris Hemsworth. I remember the name that I really liked. Skarsgård, Alexander Skarsgård from The Northman. he would be after watching him in The Northman, I would love to see him as He-Man. Chris Hemsworth would also be a very good He-Man. I mean, but honestly, at the end of the day, just get yourself a good actor and I'll be happy. All right. Let's see. Next up, we've got BK Dan writes, John, over under 35% that Aquaman not only cracks 400 million, but lands between 400 and 600. You know what? I think it can do that. Now, the first Aquaman movie made over $1 billion. And it ain't going to get there. But between 4 and 600 million, I like that. By the way, Alan Ritchson from Reacher, from Jack Reacher, is a good pick. I like that pick too. But yeah, I'll say over 35% that it can get between 4 and 600 million. Over 35%. All right. Next up, BK Dan writes, John, someone in Open Mic brought up favorite flight scenes. Sorry, I gotta go classic. 1978 Superman as Lois is falling from the Daily Planet. Sue catches her. He says, don't worry, I've got you. She says, you got me? Who's got you? That is a great moment. That is one of the great all-time superhero movie moments. It really is. I love your pick, Dan. I really do. All right, next up, we got Murray Reich, who writes, the ads past the movie start time at Regal have gotten way out of hand. Went recently to a 7:30 showing for the Marvels. Here's the breakdown. First 12 minutes of ads, then 18 minutes of trailers. Movie started at 8 p.m., plus paying a babysitter on top of it. Sickos. Listen, you guys know what I'm going to say. I have been on a one-man crusade for years. That movie theaters should start movies when you say the movie starts. Because you're right. Now, look, I don't have kids, so I don't have to do babysitter, but there are a lot of people who are paying babysitters. There are a lot of people who plan their days accordingly, right? And go and show up at a movie. And here's the thing. Going to the movies isn't free. I get showing ads when it's free. Sure. You show ads because it's free. That's how you make money. So, like the John Campea Show, YouTube channel, you get to watch my videos for free. So we put in ads and you guys watch ads because it's a free show and I get that. That's fine. But when you're paying $15, $12, $20 to go and sit in a movie theater, you should not have ads. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have ads. Now, a lot of people will then say, well, but we like trailers. Okay, I like trailers too. But do what the old ArcLight cinemas used to do. 3 trailer rule. That's it. 3 trailers, movie starts. It is inexcusable that you tell the public showtime is 7:30, but the movie doesn't start till 8. That's unacceptable. And then what jackass places like AMC theaters have started doing, they notice that people have caught on to their scam. AMC noticed that people are catching on to their scam and aren't showing up to the theater. Like if a movie says 7 o'clock, they're noticing people aren't coming into the theater until 7:20, 7:25 because they know the movie's not starting till then. So you know what AMC started to do? They mix it up now. Because I went to go see Wish, all right? Which I regret seeing because it's not very good. But I went to go see Wish. And it said it started at 3 o'clock. So I know it probably doesn't start till 3:25. I walk in at 3:15 and the movie had already been on for 5 minutes. So it's like you can't even plan around the ads now. You can't even plan around it now. So so AMC, the jackasses that they are over there, are trying to manipulate you and trick you and saying, hey, you better show up when we say the movie time is because maybe the movie starts 25 minutes after showtime. Maybe it starts 10 minutes after showtime. Guess you won't know till you come and show up. Fucking assholes. Fucking assholes. It really annoys me. It annoys me so much that they do that. Anyway, so you're preaching to the choir, Murray. All right, next up, Duck Duck writes, Buenas tardes. I'm starting to see Deadpool 3 as Marvel's Superman Legacy. The two situations are very different, but if Deadpool 3 isn't good, I believe it'll be the final straw for some remaining diehard fans. All right. Let me first say that I have every belief in the world that Deadpool 3 is going to be awesome. With that writer team and Ryan Reynolds, we just look at the track record they've had already, right? Track record, Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2, both bangers, awesome. Deadpool 3 is going to be incredible. I have every bit of belief in the world in it. That said, you're not wrong. If, however unlikely, Deadpool 3 is bad, it won't be as bad for Marvel as Superman Legacy being bad would be for DC, but it would be bad. It would be bad because, listen, the MCU right now is in a very precarious position, a position they have never been in since they started as a cinematic universe. The general movie-going audience's belief and trust in the MCU is at an all-time low. It's not as low as people's belief in DC, but it's the lowest it's ever been. While Eternals may have lost a little bit of money, I don't think it lost enough money to be called a flop. By the way, I thought Eternals was a very good movie, but they are now facing their first true legitimate flop. I mean, not just losing money, but flop with the Marvels. And I'm not a Marvels hater. I kind of liked the movie. I didn't think it was all that good. I certainly didn't think it was great, but I kind of had a good time at it. So I am no hater of the Marvels, but they are facing their first film they've ever had that is going to be a legitimate flop. And you now are going into Deadpool 3, the last movie you have in your cinematic universe until 2025. I don't think I'm exaggerating. I don't think it's exaggerating to say Deadpool 3 has to be good. I'm not saying that if it's not good, the MCU is over. No, it'll still have some life in it, even if Deadpool 3 is bad. But if Deadpool 3, the one movie project that a lot of people are looking to and saying, okay, but that one's going to be great. That one's going to be great, including me. I'm pointing out going, that is going to be great. I have all the belief in the world in Ryan Reynolds I trust. And I'm not just saying that because he pays a lot of the bills around here, but I believe that movie's going to be awesome. Everybody believes that movie's going to be awesome. But if it isn't, if that movie is not even terrible, okay, just disappointing, that is going to set the Marvel Cinematic Universe back a huge amount. Again, I'm not saying it kills them, but it sets them back a huge amount. CJ Rebirth has made a really good point saying that I love Free Guy and Real Steel. So I have faith in Sean Levy. I also have a lot of belief in Sean Levy. By the way, Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds also worked on that Netflix film. I think it was called Adam Project. Not the most amazing film in the world, but by Netflix standards, it was a really solid little film. I enjoyed that movie a lot. And that's another example besides Free Guy. So Sean Levy and Ryan have worked on Free Guy together. They worked on the Adam Project together. They're now doing Deadpool 3. I have all the belief in the world in the film. But you're not wrong, Duck Duck. If it's bad, and I don't think it will be, but if it's bad, it will be very bad for Marvel. Very, very bad for Marvel. All right. Brian O'Connor sends in a $20 tip. Thank you, Brian, for supporting our channel on that level, man. He writes, while I adore Cameron's Avatar series, I can't help but imagine how incredible it would be if it were written by a George R.R. Martin type and edited by Villeneuve's editor, Joe Walker. The visuals are amazing, but the lore and the style is too TV for me. I get what you're saying, Brian. I do. And really, with the names you're throwing in there, it makes the imagination run wild, doesn't it? However, I will say this. It's hard to say. Let me look up Box Office Mojo here for a second, because I want to just make sure I get these names right. So the all-time worldwide box office, 2 of the top 3 films are those Avatar films. Avatar 2, The Way of Water, made $2.32 billion. The first Avatar made $2.9 billion. It is difficult when you're talking about 2 of the 3 most successful films in the history of cinema being lackluster in some way, or it would have worked better this way. Now, I agree with you. You look at the first Avatar movie, it's really Dances with Wolves in space, right? It's not conceptually, it's not a very original film. Visually, it's wildly original, but I mean, conceptually, it's not a very original film. It's the Dances with Wolves story. It's the Pocahontas story. That's what it is. It's very simple. So if you had added on top of that, another layer of depth of the story, maybe it could have been incredible, or maybe it would have turned some people off and the movie wouldn't have made as much. It's interesting to think about, but I do love the names you brought up there, Brian. Thanks for sharing that, man. And again, thanks for supporting us on that level, Brian. I really appreciate that. All right, next up. I didn't mind the Marvels, writes. Am I the only one laughing at those who scream, get woke, go broke, since most of the small number of blockbusters in 2023, Barbie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy, Little Mermaid, etc., had diverse casting and social themes? More like oppose woke, go broke. Look, my basic rule in life is if I hear somebody say go woke, go broke, I just immediately assume they're a moron and I tune them out and I never listen to them. But the opposite is not true. The opposite of if you don't go woke, you go broke, that is equally untrue. I mean, because you're right. Barbie is the #1 box office film of the year. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse with diverse, characters and themes and all that kind of stuff. One of the big successes of the year. That is all true. However, you also have the Marvels. What really gets me though, and I put up a post about this on the community tab of the YouTube channel. But here's the part that really gets me. Okay. And I'm going to use, some of you might have heard me say this before. I'm going to use the example of the CW show Supergirl, right? Now, if somebody wanted to come out and say Supergirl was a woke show. First of all, why is woke a bad thing? Woke is basically saying, hey, we need to stop the agenda of exclusion. We need to stop the agenda that said anybody other than straight white males have no place in having their stories told and have no place in being on the screen. If woke simply means ending that agenda, I don't see why it's a bad phrase. But anyway, that's another topic for another time. So if somebody wanted to look at the Supergirl show on CW and say that's a woke show, I could get why they're saying it. I still think it's stupid to say that, but I could get why they're saying it, because every time you tuned into Supergirl, there were speeches being given. I remember this one episode where Supergirl is talking to Ally McBeal, Harrison Ford's wife. Guys in the live chat, help me out. I'm freezing on the actress's name. Anyway, but Supergirl is talking to Harrison Ford's wife, right? Callista Flockhart. Thank you. Will Smith just said Callista, but it's Callista Flockhart. That's just saying her first name made me remember her last name. Okay, so Supergirl's talking to Callista Flockhart. And Callista Flockhart goes into this big speech about, I'm a girl. What's wrong with being a girl? Being a girl can be powerful. Being a girl can be every bit as good as being a man. Blah, blah, blah. Right? So, and a lot of the show had that. Again, I have no problem that a lot of the show had that. That's great. But I'm just saying, if some ignoramus wanted to point at that show and say, that show's woke, I could look at it and say, well, I can see why you're saying that, because there are a lot of speeches and a lot of grandstanding about talking about how women are every bit as good as men and women equality and blah, blah, blah. To me, these are all good themes, but they do it in the show. So I get it. I get why you're saying that, even though I think you're ignorant for saying it. Regardless. The thing is, let's look for a second at Star Wars The Force Awakens, right? There are a lot of people who point at Star Wars The Force Awakens and say it's like a big woke thing. But when I watch Star Wars The Force Awakens, and I've seen it many times, can anybody point to me one scene in Star Wars The Force Awakens where Rey says, I know I can become a Jedi because I've got girl power? Is there one scene in any of Star Wars The Force Awakens where it's even mentioned that Finn is black? Like, is there even any mention? Is there any mention in the movie to Finn being black? And that because he's a black stormtrooper, he's got to show to all the other stormtroopers that he can be just as good as those white stormtroopers. Is there any mention of that? There's literally nothing in those movies, unlike the Supergirl show on CW, that somebody could point at and say, oh, smoke. The only thing is that they had the audacity to make the lead character a girl instead of a guy. That was it. Same thing is true of the Marvels right now. Like, I put up this post about the Marvels. I'm like, listen, guys, I see all these people pointing at the Marvels and saying it's a woke movie. And I'm like, never in the movie is we're going to be powerful because we're 3 strong women. And as 3 strong women, we can show the patriarchy that we can be just as good or even better than men. Yeah. I watched the movie. There's none of that in the movie. There's nothing remotely similar to that. It's just that the objections is that there's women there at all. Because there's nothing else in the movie that is remotely, quote unquote, woke, other than the fact that they have the audacity, these women have the audacity of even being in the movie. It's a very confusing thing to me. It's a very, very confusing thing to me. But anyway, there's just that. Okay. Next up. I didn't mind the Marvels also writes, me again, since at least 1/3 of the people still haven't gone back to the cinema post-COVID, which has undoubtedly affected several movies' box office. Should studios consider charging people, say, $30 to watch new releases on the streaming services they own? Nah, this is a topic that's been gone over and covered 1,000 different times. There's a million different reasons why that doesn't work. The film industry actually did experiment with that about 10 years ago. They experimented with having, I think it was $50, and you had to have the specific dedicated IP machine and it would stream things, and they just found it didn't really work. Not to mention that they only really make their money in movie theaters. And anyway, again, I get where you're bringing it up. It's just, this has been a topic and a question that's come up a lot over the years, and it is something that the Hollywood studios experimented with, but to them, the experiment just didn't work, apparently. All right. Next up, Inalo writes, I would like to see Jeremy Allen White, that's the dude from The Bear, as Link. Oh, I couldn't see that at all. I love him in The Bear and can't wait to see him in Iron Claw. He's so good in The Bear. He's fantastic. But I don't see him as, I personally don't see him as Link. I don't personally see it, but who knows? Maybe they could find a way to make it work, Inalo. All right. Suthius writes, the story of Black Manta is one of the tropes that I don't care about. I don't care about your vengeance and your father. You and your father were pieces of shit assholes. His death is on you, is on both of you, and no one to blame for your own idiocy. I can't stand this trope bore. While I think Yaya does a really good job playing the character, I do think it was a poorly set up character, right? It's like, wait a minute, you and your dad are bad guys. And your dad got killed because somebody stopped you from doing something evil. And you get this big, I mean, so I get it, but the vengeance motif can always work if you also build around it. And I found with Black Mantis, and maybe other people disagree, but I found with Black Mantis, they never built around it. They just kind of leaned into it. And I thought they could have done more with it. But let's see how it turns out in the next Aquaman movie coming out soon. All right. Stefan sends in a $20 tip. Thank you, Stefan, for supporting us on that level, man. Stefan writes, I don't know if this was already brought up. All the age talk about Fantastic Four made me think about Superman Legacy. What if this is an 80-year-old retired Superman barely aging? A little bit of what Cap brought to the MCU, a wise fish out of water being. I don't personally like the idea of that, because it's introducing an entire element to Superman that has never been a part of the Superman lore, right? Superman was born, grew up in Smallville, aged normally through school, aged normally through high school, went off to the Daily Planet, became a full-grown man, all that kind of stuff. The idea that he has actually been around for 80 years, that's actually contrary to a lot of the lore, and it undoes a lot of his background story. Like the background of what made Superman who he is, his experiences in Smallville, growing up on the farm with, Jonathan and Ma Kent. Because that would mean Jonathan and Ma Kent would have to have died when he was physically still only like 12 years old or something like that, right? When he physically looked like he was 12 years old or something. So I like bringing in new concepts, new ideas, but as long as they're concepts and ideas that don't fundamentally change the underpinning of the story of who the character is. Like, I would even argue you can make Superman black. That doesn't change anything about our understanding of Superman, right? Everything about the understanding of Superman and where he came from and what his powers are and what he does and what he stands for, none of that changes if this alien entity, this alien biological entity, Kal-El from the planet of Krypton, happened to have the appearance of a African-American human being as opposed to the appearance of a Caucasian human being. But adding some, like an entire element that undoes the underpinning of his growing up in Smallville, his high school experiences, his experience with Jonathan and Martha Kent, and then going off and aging at a normal rate, I think that would be a bit much, because that does undo a lot of the story. But anyway, it's just me. All right. Thanks for the recommendation. I love people thinking outside the box, though, Stefan. So thanks for the suggestion, dude. All right. Next up, Garden Variety Vagabond writes, were you a Monk fan with Tony Shalhoub? I see trailers for a new Monk movie on Peacock. I loved Monk and I look forward to this, but also glad it's not another full return season one. Do you carry on? Yeah. I just saw, okay, this is a separate thing. All right. So I never saw Monk. I love Tony Shalhoub. Like I remember when I was much younger, I first found Tony Shalhoub when he was doing, Wings. Remember that sitcom Wings? Thomas Hayden Church got his start on that show as well. At least to me, he got his start on that show. And I think Tony Shalhoub played like an Italian taxi driver or whatever, and he was hilarious. And he's gone on to do other things, like he was Master Splinter for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for a bit. He was also, I love him in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, as Mrs. Maisel's dad. He's fantastic in that. I love Tony Shalhoub, but his most successful show, the thing most people know him from, Monk, is something I never watched, and everybody's told me I should go back and watch that, and I think I will at some point. Okay, let's keep going here. Next up, we've got another one from Garden Variety Vagabond who writes, I just saw a pic of Kevin Durand, the Strain actor, and realized how much he looks like Elon Musk. As he's also a good actor, he's currently my pick for the inevitable upcoming biopic. Am I the only one seeing the resemblance? I think I could see a little bit of resemblance. Again, you know me, resemblance to the actual real life person is completely irrelevant. It really doesn't matter. Put on the right wig, put on the right makeup, get them to look a little bit like the actual person. It's really not that big of a deal. But Kevin is a very good actor. I've always liked him. He's also a very physically big, large, imposing dude. And I don't know. I mean, Elon Musk isn't, so I don't know about that. But I don't think you're wrong. I do think there's a similarity there between them. As a matter of fact, I don't think you're wrong about that. All right, next up, Garden Variety also writes, the Penguin trailer. Do I need to say anything else? Did a new Penguin trailer drop? I mean, I know we're going to talk about it tomorrow on the John Campea Show, but I know they're going back into production here really soon with Penguin after the strikes are now done. But anybody in the live chat, do you know anything about there being another Penguin trailer? Because I have not seen anything about another Penguin trailer so far. Yeah, King Daddy Goat is saying, I haven't seen it. Yeah, people are saying they're checking on it. Patrick is saying, I don't see it. Yeah, and I doubt they're going to drop that trailer on Thanksgiving. Maybe you're just saying, like, looking forward to a new one. Guys, I cannot wait for this show. I absolutely cannot wait for this show. But yes, everybody's saying no, there is no new trailer out yet. Okay, so Garden Variety is probably talking about hopefully an upcoming one. Cannot wait. All right, The Hutch writes, despite it feeling longer than Flower Moon, I love the new Hunger Games. I was so enthralled with the story, characters, and world building that the pace didn't bother me that much. Having grown up with the series, it was great to be back in that world. And you know what, Hutch? My wife, who loves the Hunger Games stuff, loved the movie. She loved Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Loved it. I did not. I thought the performances were incredible. I did like some of the world building they did, but there was just too much random stuff and disconnected stuff and pacing issues and all that kind of stuff that for me, it was just, at the end of the day, I didn't have a great time watching it, even though there were some very good things about it. Wonderful. Like I said, magnificent performances. There's some very good pieces, but for me, ultimately it didn't work. But you are in good company, man. Cause like I said, my wife loved it too. And apparently the majority of the audiences like it as well. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, my friend. All right. Sam Fisher writes, I love the announcement of the new Karate Kid movie. I know not everyone loves Jaden Smith's Karate Kid movie. I really like that movie, but I enjoy it, though it probably shouldn't have been called, probably should have been called The Kung Fu Kid. I love the idea of it maybe being a karate versus kung fu movie. Maybe, for those of you who don't know, the announcement came out the day that Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan are doing a Karate Kid movie, and Ralph Macchio is playing Daniel, and Jackie Chan is playing the character Mr. Han from his Karate Kid movie with Jaden Smith. This is a very interesting sounding thing. I'm like, really? So both of these stories happened in the same universe and you're putting them together? Again, I don't know if this is going to be embraced or not, but I know a lot of people are definitely looking forward to seeing it. All right, guys, listen, we still got a whole lot more to get through, but before we do, we're going to take a quick break here and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode, our friends at DraftKings and Fume. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, DraftKings. There's so much to be thankful for. Family, friends, food, and NFL football all week long. DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping your Thanksgiving week full of action. New customers can bet just $5 on the NFL action to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. No matter your appetite, there's something for you. Money lines, parlays, props, live bets, and so much more. You name it, they've got it. And it's a big Thanksgiving week. Detroit Lions are favored over the Green Bay Packers. The Dallas Cowboys are favored over Washington. Who will you pick? So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code Campea. New customers can bet $5 on the NFL Thanksgiving action to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with the code Campea. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. Please play responsibly. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, must be 21 or older in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Fume. Quitting cold turkey is great in theory, but you and I both know it's way more difficult than that. And that's why there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some fake online promises. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume. And they look at the problem in a different way. Instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavor-air device that does just that. See, instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. I personally didn't know what to expect when I first got my Fume. I mean, I've never liked vapes, but my goodness, the taste. The first time I tried it, I was completely sold on it. It was incredible. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. You gotta try the new Solano Fume. It's made with a premium walnut barrel and an onyx-coated mouthpiece that has a slightly softer finish. Start the holidays off right with The Good Habit by going to tryfume.com/Campea and getting the Journey Pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 20% off until December 1st when they use my code Campea to help make starting the good habit that much easier. So start the good habit at tryfume.com/Campea to save an additional 20% off the Journey Pack today until December 1st and 10% off year round. And thank you to our friends at DraftKings and Fume for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get back into your questions here, shall we? We're going to pick things up here with Calum, who writes, "Hey, John, now finished Game of Thrones, and as I expected, felt rushed. I liked it overall, but there were so many dumb things that season. My question is, though, as a lot of people didn't like the final season, do you think it's possible they bring it back?" Well, two things. Number one, they already have brought it back. I mean, House of the Dragon is Game of Thrones, and they have announced that they're going to be doing a continuation series on Jon Snow, on the things, on Jon Snow after the events of Game of Thrones. That being said, I still stand that the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones were great. Not just good, they were great. However, as somebody who thought they were great, and by the way, the final season of Game of Thrones won more Emmy Awards than any other show in television history. Just throwing that out there. But even I, as somebody who really liked the last season of Game of Thrones, even I completely acknowledge that any downside to that season was the nature of how rushed it was. There was no reason that season had to be as short as it was. Like HBO even told the showrunners, you can make it as many episodes as you want. And they were like, nah, we'll just do like a couple. That's fine. We're going to move on to other things. And yeah, there was a number of things that were really, really rushed. But the thing that always makes me laugh is all these people. There's some people who don't like the final season, and some of the people say, just out of nowhere, Daenerys, Dany went bad, and that made no sense. That came out of nowhere. And I'm like, no. Because like for 4 years, maybe 3, but probably 4 years, because Ann and I used to do a Game of Thrones after show and everything. I had told everybody for 4 years, I said, Dany is an asshole. I said years earlier, before the finale, I said, Dany is going bad. You can see it. They've made it plain as day that Dany is about Dany. Dany is not about the good for the world, and bring everything that she always talked about, always circled back to what was good for her and what she wanted and her vengeance and all this kind of stuff. And I said for years, she's breaking bad. You can see it. They're making it obvious. And all these people say, no, she's not, John. You're being silly. And every week I'd say, guys, they're making it obvious. She is going bad. They're making it as clear as the nose on your face. She's going bad. Nah, they're not. And then when she did break bad, everybody's like, no, we didn't see that coming. What do you mean nobody saw that coming? I've been telling you for 4 years she's going bad. I've been screaming she's going bad. I've been telling you Dany's a jerk. She's clearly breaking bad. And everybody said, nah. And then she did. And people acted like it was some big surprise. I told you she was going bad. I told you. Anyway, next up, we go on to... let's see here. An anonymous viewer writes, if Ralph Macchio is in the new Karate Kid movie and it's set for release in 1 year, what does that mean for Cobra Kai season 6, which also hasn't started filming yet? LOL. Honestly, I probably don't think it takes him more than 2 or 3 months to shoot his stuff. My assumption is he probably doesn't shoot for more than 2 or 3 months. And a normal actor on a regular movie is only booked for 2 to 3 months for that movie. So really, it shouldn't be that big of a problem at all. He could probably do a third project this year and still be fine. So I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. I don't know. All right. Next up, we got BK Dan who writes, John, with Filoni's new position and more than rumors of Kathleen Kennedy on the way out, is this a stepping stone for Filoni to be shown the corporate side to take the head of Lucas? No, absolutely not. Guys, being the head of a corporation takes decades of experience, decades of education, decades of knowing the parts of business. Dave Filoni is a straight up storyteller. He doesn't know, Dave Filoni will be the first person to tell you this. Dave Filoni doesn't know jack shit about actually running a company. And I know everybody thinks that a job they don't do must be easy. Oh, being an actor? Easy. Being a CEO? Easy. No, it ain't easy. And I think Dave Filoni has been given the perfect position for Dave Filoni. Creative officer. That is perfect because you don't need to know jack shit about business to be able to be the chief creative officer, to be the person who's going to give input on storytelling and all that kind of stuff. It's the perfect spot. Zero chance Dave Filoni is given the chief president CEO spot of Lucasfilm. Zero chance. And it would be a massive idiotic move to give somebody who has zero experience that sort of position. It would be absolutely idiotic. He's 100% in the right position. He's in the right position 100%. All right. Let's see. Where do we go here? Next up, we've got Riley, who also sends in a $20 tip. Thank you, Riley, for supporting us on that level, man. Appreciate that very much. He writes, hey, want to say I'm a big fan. I've been watching since August of 2021. Well, thank you so much for that, Riley. Good to have you here, man. I appreciate that. Well, my question today is, have you seen The Holdovers? I did. It was okay. I wanted it to be great, but it was good for me at least. I really liked The Holdovers. I was a little bit late to the party. The ending for me is it's a very sad to me, the ending. And I get there's an inspirational thing in there, but at any rate, Paul Giamatti and the director of the film, whose name is eluding me right now, the director of the film, him and Paul Giamatti worked before on another film. And now I'm freezing on the name of it, about the wine being wine connoisseurs. I've quoted this movie a bunch the last week, and now today I'm suddenly freezing on it. Anyway, Sandra Oh was in it. Thomas Hayden Church was in it. You guys know the movie I'm talking about. Anyway, and they had worked brilliantly together. Sideways. Joe Adonis reminds me, the name of the movie is Sideways. The poster is like a sketch drawing of a wine bottle tipped over with like Paul Giamatti's character crawling out. It's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant movie. And they really did a good job of, I think, recapturing that chemistry between director and actor. And again, as you get through it, I mean, yeah, there's overtures of Good Will Hunting in there. There's overtures of Finding Forrester in there. There's a little bit of overtures of Dead Poets Society in there. But when it comes to the ending and, Paul Giamatti is leaving at the end, I thought it was a really good film. Is it going to be in my top 5 movies of the year? Probably not, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad you at least had a good time with it, Riley. And again, Riley, thank you so much for being a relatively new viewer of the show and for supporting us that way. And it's good to have you here, man. Thanks for sending in the question. All right, next up. Let's see. Riley writes, I'm disappointed to hear that The Bike Riders has been taken off the release calendar and is now being shopped around. I was very excited for this film. The trailer looks good. Yeah, now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe I caught out of the side of my eye yesterday afternoon a headline that said another studio has picked it up. I didn't take the time to get into it and read it because I know we're not doing another full regular show until tomorrow. Yeah, I think you're right, Bobby Jackson. I think I heard Regency picked it up. I could be wrong about that. No, or was Regency the one? Regency was the film, was the thing behind it at the time. So I think they were it. But I thought I heard, a few people in the live chat are saying Focus picked it up. That would make sense. That would make more sense. That Focus Features picked it up. And other people are saying, yes, it's Focus. So that makes a lot more sense. So now all we got to do is get a release date because yeah, I'm really excited to see this movie actually. All right. Next up, we've got an anonymous viewer who writes, by the way, guys, remember when you use the tip link, don't forget that there is a field in there for you to put your name. And if you don't put in your name, it just inserts anonymous. And I don't need to know your name. I'm not collecting names, but I mean, if you're going to support our channel and tip in something to us to support us and send in a question for us to address, I just want to make sure you get a shout out. So make sure you put your name in there when you do that. Anyway, I mean, if you want to. Anonymous viewer writes, when it comes to a new Karate Kid movie, I agree pairing up Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan is gimmicky. At the same time, if Sony is insisting on doing a new Karate Kid movie now, how does one do so with such close proximity to the popularity of Cobra Kai? I don't think it honestly, I don't think it matters. Number one, I don't think you should do a Karate Kid movie now, but you can do it in close proximity to it's like asking, how could Matt Reeves do another Batman in such close proximity to Ben Affleck's Batman having still been on screen, right? Well, you can do it if you do it right and you do it the proper way and you market it right. You can do it. Now, while I do think doing a Karate Kid movie with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio is gimmicky, and it is, gimmicky isn't necessarily the worst thing. Gimmicky can work. Gimmick in and of itself is not a bad word. Gimmick is just a tool. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I wasn't interested in seeing this movie. I am. I mean, again, I question the wisdom of making it, but I would be straight up lying to you if I didn't tell you that I'm going to be there. When this thing opens in theaters, I will be there. I will be going in to watch it myself. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right. Next up. We've got Garden Variety Vagabond who writes, if Dave Filoni is the new head of the Jedi Council, then Sam Witwer should be the new Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Yaddle. No, Count Dooku. Put him in charge of running the red team like in military battle planning and make the Sith battle plan. Listen, I love Sam Witwer. Okay. I love him. I think he's awesome. I'm probably actually going to get a chance to see him this week. They got an event promoting their new book. By the way, their new Dungeons and Dragons book that he does with Kyle Newman. Fantastic. Anyway, I have all the respect in the world for Sam Witwer. I'm a big fan of his as an actor. Every time I've had the opportunity to interact with him, I found him to be completely one of the nicest, most charming, authentic kind of guys out there. He's wonderful. But what qualifies him to have a position like that? Because he gloriously did the voice of Darth Maul. Like, I don't know what qualifies him. I know we know him. And listen, if they announce that Sam got that, I'd be very, very happy for him. But I don't know if that's the right pick, but we'll see. All right. Next up. Garden Variety Vagabond writes, you can choose only one. Sean Gunn in James Gunn film or Bruce Campbell in a Sam Raimi movie. Ooh. Nah, pass. Sorry to suck out on it, but I pass. I love every time Sean Gunn is in a James Gunn film. I love, obviously, Bruce Campbell in a Sam Raimi film. But yeah, I got to pass on the question. It's a great question, but I got to pass on it. All right. The Dumb of All Fears writes, one of two. From 2006 to 2019, Disney dominated the box office through Marvel, Star Wars, live action, animation, and Pixar with 25 $1 billion movies. Outside of Avatar 2, only a few of their releases have gotten close, and none have crossed the $1 billion mark since 2020. By the way, there was a little thing called the pandemic, and the repercussions of that, which has fundamentally changed the nature of the business. But let's get through the rest of your question. Number two, it's only one of many factors, but I'm wondering if a large number of casual audiences are now conditioned to just wait for a movie to land on Disney Plus, especially if word of mouth is mediocre/negative, and how much that is costing them at the box office. Well, see, here's the thing. That exact same question was asked back when VHS tapes started to become popular and suddenly every home in America had a VHS player. It's like, well, Now no one's going to go to the movies because they know they just have to wait a little bit and the movie will come out on videotape. And then that got even more so when DVDs came out, smaller, lighter, easier to manufacture, all that kind of stuff. And people said, well, people aren't going to movies because now they know they can just wait until the DVDs come out. And then when HD came out and Blu-ray and all that kind of stuff, increased it again. I honestly think a much bigger factor, at least two of the bigger factors than that, because that is a factor. I mean, and it's always been a factor going back to the days of VHS and DVD. It's been a factor. It still is a factor. Absolutely. I think the two bigger factors, though, are number one, again, the pandemic happened, right? That killed a lot. As somebody wrote in a little bit earlier, there is still a not majority, but still a significant number of people who Forbes say have still not gone back to the movie theaters since the pandemic. So that's a big factor in it. The second factor is the overall quality of their product has dropped, right? I remain an MCU fan. I am very much an MCU fan, but as a fan, I can acknowledge that the overall quality of their product has dropped. It's dropped considerably, right? So 3 of the last 4, no, 5 of the last 6 MCU projects have failed to be great. Some are terrible. No, not 5 of the last 6, maybe 6 of the last 7. Anyway, some have been terrible. Some have been okay. But only 1 out of the last 6 or 7 MCU projects has been truly great. That was Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Outside of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, you've had Secret Invasion. You've had The Marvels, which again, I enjoyed, but it ain't great. It had a lot of issues. You had Thor: Love and Thunder. You had Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Again, a movie I liked, but it was not great. It wasn't anywhere near as good as the first Doctor Strange. In there somewhere, you had She-Hulk, which was bad. You had, and that's not the way it used to be with Marvel. It used to be with the MCU that 1 out of the last 5 wasn't great. Now 1 out of the last 6 or 7 is great. That's a major drop in quality. So I would say those two factors, pandemic and overall drop in quality, have more to do with it than anything to do with streaming, right? Because Barbie made $1.3 billion and everybody knew that was going to go to HBO pretty soon. And it still made $1.3 billion. All right. Next up, we've got Murray Reich, who writes, I saw the new A24 Nick Cage film Dream Scenario. Oh, I didn't even know that was available yet. I do want to see that. It reminded me a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street. It felt like a random 1960s Twilight Zone episode. I definitely enjoyed the film a lot. Loved Cage's performance in it. Fascinating but creepy, disturbing plot. 8 out of 10. So for those of you who don't know anything about Dream Scenario, go and look up the trailer. But the concept is fascinating. So Nicolas Cage plays this average guy. He's like a teacher, average dude, but he starts finding out that a whole bunch of people are dreaming about him. Like he's in their dreams, even people who don't know him. And then it becomes like a global thing where like he is in everybody's dreams and he has no idea why and all that kind of stuff. So the movie looks fascinating to me. I didn't know it was available to be seen yet. So thanks for putting that in there, Murray, because I definitely want to check this thing out. I really do. Thanks for giving me your input. All right. Joey writes, do children's movies expect twice the audience when projecting box office revenue? No, they don't. For every kid watching the movie, there's an adult who brought them thanks. That has nothing. Because listen, for every 9 times out of 10, people go to the movies with somebody else, whether that's a person with their date, a person with their buddy, a person with their spouse, a kid with their mom, whatever. 9 times out of 10. Now, yeah, I'll go to a movie by myself sometimes. I'm sure you go to a movie by yourself sometimes. It happens, but box office is box office. How many people will go? They don't assume it'll be double. Just like saying they don't assume a movie will be double because, oh, someone's going to bring a date to this, so double the revenue. No, I mean, they figure all that into it. So no, that doesn't come into it, Joey. I could see why you'd ask the question, but no, that doesn't come into it. All right. Garden Variety Vagabond writes, on factors why to go to a cinema for certain movie, I often feel guilty for not supporting filmmakers. But with the cost of the movie plus food, I need a reason to go. What would I miss out on a smaller screen? Cinematography and action is key. I mean, everybody has their own thing because these are subjective experiences, Garden, and for all of us, they're different. For me, the only way to truly watch a movie, the way filmmakers will tell you this, the way movies were intended to be watched, the magic of the movies is being in a theater with 200 other people, or 75 other people, or 25 other people, or 500 other people, and gasping and laughing and crying and jumping and reacting together. As a sports fan, I often compare it to the sports experience. Yeah, watching a football game at home is great. I'm going to do some of that today. But watching a football game at home, when, say, Lamar Jackson drops back 10, scrambles, keeps a play alive, heaves one up to the end zone for a big touchdown, that's exciting to watch on a TV screen. It is. It's great. I love watching football on TV. But there's no comparison to actually being in the stadium with thousands of others as Lamar Jackson drops back, scrambles, keeping the play alive. Everybody's hanging on the edge of their seat, gasping, cheering. The ball goes up. You and 1,000 other people are like holding your breath. It comes down, and the explosion of celebration in the theater. Watching a football game at home is great. It is. But it's nothing compared to being there and enjoying the experience with all those other people. To me, it's the same thing about the movies. Watching a movie at home is great. It is. I love watching movies at home. But it pales in comparison. For me, the movie watching experience pales in comparison to being in a theater with other people as you're all experiencing it and reacting to it at the same time. I'm trying to imagine a world where I watched Avengers Endgame for the first time at home. How much would that have sucked? I mean, the movie still would have been fine. But I'm trying to imagine, and I'm using this as an extreme example, but when Cap is standing there alone against Thanos and his armies and tightening up his broken shield, ready to stand by himself against the legions of Thanos, and then he hears, on your left, and the portals open, and all the heroes come through the portals, and being in that movie theater, being there as the audience cheers and cries and weeps in joy and stands on their feet and scream out and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I could have been sitting at home on my couch, my little bowl of popcorn. Ooh, cool. It's nothing. And I think I use that as an extreme example, but I love that too in emotional movies and profound movies. I am so glad the first time I watched the documentary about Mr. Rogers, I think it was called Won't You Be My Neighbor? I think that I often confuse the titles between the documentary on Mr. Rogers and the movie on Mr. Rogers that Tom Hanks was in. One was called Won't You Be My Neighbor? One was called It's a Beautiful Day. But whatever, the documentary. I am so glad that I watched that documentary in a theater because there was 70 other people in there and getting choked up and crying, and you share in that experience. There will never be anything better to me than being in a movie theater, the lights go down, and being with all these other strangers and experiencing this emotional experience that a movie presents. There will never be anything like it to me. It is why, to me, every day that I wake up that I know I'm going to a movie is a good day. I'm going to the movies today. Every day I wake up that I know I'm going to the movie theater that day, I'm excited all day. My whole day is a countdown to when I get to go to theater. Even when I go to watch 2 bad movies in a row, Wish and Napoleon, doesn't matter. I got to go to that movie theater and I experienced it with everybody. And I love it, man. Nothing will ever replace that for me. Not sitting on your stinky couch and your gitch having a stale bowl of Doritos, whatever. And again, I like sitting at home on my couch in my gitch with a bowl of Doritos and watching a movie. I enjoy that very much. I'm not poo-pooing it. It's just saying it's nothing compared to the real thing. And that's just me, though. I don't expect everybody to have the same experience with me, but to me, yeah, that's what it works for me. All right. Next up, we go to Garden again, who writes, John, as we talk often about recent films and trash the writing, could the issue be the editing versus writing? And if editing, maybe due to scenes not meeting goals on paper, poor acting in a scene, or requirements to trim time might even kill off whole plots? I mean, absolutely. But it's very tough because we don't see we see the results of the editing, but we don't see the editing in motion. Whereas with the dialogue and scripts and stories, we get that and we don't know what's been changed. Listen, there's an old adage that says, you shoot the movie in front of the camera, but movies are made in the editing room. And that is so true. I used to doubt that old saying until I started making my own movies. Once I made my first movie, I was like, oh shit, like that thing is totally true. The movie is made in the editing room. And I think 100% Garden, there are times when a good script has been defeated by poor direction. I think there are times that a good script has been defeated by maybe poor performances. And I absolutely think you're right, that there are times that a good script is destroyed and defeated by bad editing. I also think many times a bad script is just a bad script, right? I think that's true as well. But I do agree that there are times when the opposite is true. All right. Guys, we still got a bunch of more questions to get to, but before we do, we're going to take another quick moment here and thank another sponsor of the John Campea Show podcast. I just got my Ryan Reynolds Christmas card the other day for our sponsor, my mobile service provider, and they should absolutely be yours, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast and for being my mobile service provider. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your super chats that you guys who've been watching live been sending in. Just to let you know, I have turned off the super chats. I turned them off a little while ago, actually. So we've got as many in there as we can, but let's get to the ones that you guys have sent in, shall we? And we're going to get things started off here with Storm Dragon. And Storm Dragon writes, "Happy Thanksgiving. The Netflix director actions was completely irresponsible and probably ruined his whole career. Netflix is right to be upset." Yeah, listen, and I don't even know, I haven't really heard any reaction from Netflix yet, other than them saying, we understood a while ago we were never going to get this series. But what happens now with the fraud? I don't know. Again, it's going to be really interesting to see how this whole thing shakes out. All right, Dominic Alberis writes, "Today is a great day. Good food and watching the best team in the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys." You think they're the best team in the NFL? Anyway, the Dallas Cowboys with the best quarterback in Dak. Yeah, no. How about them Cowboys? Yeah, I've seen them take some spankings this year. They're beating some bad teams. Yeah, but when they run into the really good teams, they get smacked around. I never believe in the Dallas Cowboys. Never. And by the way, I like Dak. I do. But yeah, never believe in the Dallas Cowboys. They're not going to go far. They're not going to go far this year. All right. Next up. But hey, have a great time watching them today, man. I hope they do. I hope they perform well for you. Robert Presser writes, I've seen Thanksgiving twice. Really fun and gory. Yep. White meat, dark meat. All will be carved. I still haven't seen it, to be honest with you. And honestly, it looks like nobody saw it. If I go over to the weekend chart, I think in total, Thanksgiving has now made $15 million. So, I mean, I know they made it for a real cheap budget, but still, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of people are watching it, but I'm glad you liked it, and I probably will check it out because I really like Eli Roth. All right, next up. Jasmine Jones writes, High School Musical, the series, Loki Season 2, WandaVision, and Ms. Marvel are my favorite from Disney+. I've never watched the High School Musical, the musical. Don't really care about it. Loki Season 2 was quite good. WandaVision and Ms. Marvel. Yeah, I agree with you that WandaVision and Ms. Marvel, to me, it's easy. The best thing Disney Plus has ever done is WandaVision. I think the next best thing they've done is Ms. Marvel. And I think Loki Season 2 comes in third in that. I did not love the first season of Loki, but I like this one. I like this season a lot. Had some issues with the ending, but overall, I thought it was really solid. And it's good to enjoy that stuff again. Oh, by the way, I'm talking about MCU. I mean, if we included Star Wars in that, I think it would probably be the number one thing that they've done on Disney Plus is still WandaVision. I think the next best thing they've done is Andor. Andor is fucking brilliant. It's just so good. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Jasmine. Jeremy King writes, John, some of us have nowhere to go this Thanksgiving Day, so thanks for giving us a place to hang out and geek out. Oh, well, thank you for being here, man. Yeah. You know, I just decided a couple days ago, you know, we should still do a show on Thanksgiving Day, right? We should still have a chance for a bunch of us to still get together and chat and talk and stuff like that. So it's my pleasure to be here. So thanks so much for joining me, man. I appreciate that. Robert Presser also writes, Carl Eric Rinch is a shisty SOB if proven true. Oh yeah. If proven true, there's no excuse. If proven true, and that's a big thing. If proven true, I mean that this guy nobody will ever trust him again, and nor should they. I mean, that's just dirty. All right, next up, Shazeli, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, John, I've already seen gamers commenting on how jacked Abby's actresses need to be. No, she doesn't. To match the character. How important is her needing to be really buff? Zero important, because it was never important in the game. I think, like, it's just one of those things where her buffness is... Now, granted, it's been a couple years since I've gone through Last of Us Season 2, but I don't think her buffness was ever made a point of. Now, she's got to be very physically capable and all that kind of stuff, so I think they're going to get an actress who's in really good shape, but she doesn't need to be buff. Because looking like the character isn't that important, to be honest with you. Unless your character's name is literally He-Man. If your character's name is literally He-Man, then being big and buff is probably pretty important. But Abby, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. It's not important to the story. Unless it's important to the story, it's not important. So do I think they're going to get an actress who... It's more important that they get a really good actress. And then whatever actress they get, are they going to get her on a 4-month training program with professional trainers and dietitians to bulk them up a bit? Absolutely. I'm sure they will. But do they need to look like Olympic gymnasts like Abby does? No, I don't think that's terribly important, to be honest with you. All right. Next up, Cool Ranch writes, one of two. Lately, I've been using an app through my library called Hoopla. It's mostly used for books, but it also has digital music and movies. Hoopla has a few studio projects too. Maybe studios will just donate the license to streaming titles that they can't sell to platforms like Hoopla instead of leaving them in the vault. That's something that's been brought up a lot, Cool Ranch, but there is a catch. And I've brought this up a couple of times. Here's the catch. There are still licensing rights and residual deals and all this kind of stuff and fees. So a studio can't just decide to donate the movie somewhere, because there's still going to be producers and writers and actors that go, we still get our residuals. Somebody's got to pay for that. Right? Somebody's got to pay for that. So what would happen is a studio, number one, would have to agree to donate the project, but then they would have to get the WGA, the Screen Actors Guild, and the PGA to all write off on each individual project saying we waive any of our rights to any additional licensing fees or residuals or anything like that. And that, I don't know, is something that they would do. I don't know if that's something they would do. So yeah, no, I just don't know that they'd ever be able to get that to work. All right. Next up. I like the idea though. Haas TV writes, subtitles on or off? For me, it's on because I find it helps me follow the plot easier and pick up on names, acronyms, etc. When I was younger, I hated them. Okay. It depends on the streaming service, because some streaming services will have their audio tracks turned up to the right amount. Some streaming services don't. They have their audio tracks a little bit lower than others will. And it's when you're in a scene with, like, they're on a big loud city street, sometimes it's a little tricky to pick out what the dialogue is sometimes. Or they're in a plane and it's tough to hear because they don't have the audio tracks raised enough. So when I'm sitting down and watching a movie, I usually don't do for shows, but if I'm watching a movie, I'll usually be able to tell in the first 5 or 10 minutes where they've got their audio track level set. And if I think they've got it set a little bit low, and some of them do that, then I'll turn on the subtitle track. I don't like having it on the screen, but it's more important to me to make sure I pick up every single line of dialogue, because missing a line of dialogue can throw off your entire understanding of a scene, of an entire act, or maybe even the whole movie. So yeah, I always kind of decide, I wish there was like some kind of definitive standard about what audio levels are supposed to be set at. Anyway. All right. Thanks for that, Hawes. CJ Adams writes, going through the MCU with my grandma, just finished Civil War. She said it was too long, but the easiest to follow so far. Skip Thor 2 for my sake. Yeah, you can skip Thor 2. You're not really missing much. There's a couple of movies you can miss. Actually, as a matter of fact, the brilliant thing about the MCU up until, say, Endgame was you didn't have to watch everything. You could be a brand new viewer, have never watched a single thing in the MCU, and you could pop on Doctor Strange. Every movie was a legitimate entry point for a brand new fan. That was the genius of the MCU. And even in movies that were connected to other movies, again, I told you a story. I had a friend of mine, the first MCU movie they ever watched was Endgame, and they never felt lost. They felt like the movie did a great job of saying, hey, in case you've never seen this, here's exactly where we're at, and this is what's going on. And did they miss some of the nuance? Absolutely. But were they able to follow the movie, and did they feel lost? They didn't feel lost at all. Lately, though, a lot of stuff has prerequisites. Like, there's no point in trying to watch the Marvels if you didn't watch Ms. Marvel and WandaVision, really. But that used to be one of the big hallmarks for them, CJ. All right. Next up, Devin Litta writes, for me, trailers provide cushion to keep me from missing any part of the movie if I'm on a crutch. Happy Thanksgiving. Keep bringing filthy birds. Are you talking about the Eagles? Anyway, big win for them over the Chiefs the other night. So I get it. I've heard from people saying, I kind of like that there are trailers because in case I'm late, I know I don't miss anything. Okay, that's fair. But for the majority of people who are there on time, then they got to sit through 25 minutes of trailers. I mean, look, I'm not saying get rid of trailers because I love trailers. I made a movie about trailers. I did. I enjoy trailers a lot, but you can't show 8 trailers before a movie, 9 trailers, 10 trailers before a movie. I like what ArcLight used to be, which was just 3 trailers and the movie starts. If the showtime is 7, at 7, they would start playing trailers. They would play 3 trailers and then jump right into the movie. And I like that way. So that still gives you a little bit of a buffer in case you're running a few minutes late, but it doesn't mean you're wasting a lot of your evening's time just sitting there watching commercials. All right. Mike's Movie Madness writes, over under 75%, Josh Brolin cameos as Cable in Deadpool 3, and there's a Thanos reference. Under 75%. I would say, it's funny because just last night, Anne was asking me, she goes, you think Zazie Beetz is going to be in Deadpool 3? And like, she says she's not. There's no report of her being anywhere near the set. So I would actually peg the likeness probably closer to 15% that Josh Brolin cameos. So I will go well under 75%. Still possible. It's possible, but I think the likelihood is very small from what we understand. All right. Adkin writes, I'm currently not keen on watching Marvel movies, although I believe they will improve. The high ticket prices, especially for a family of 4, make it difficult for me to justify going to the theater. I would look, here's what I often say about the price of going to the movie theater. Because you hear me complain too about, hey, movie theaters, you shouldn't be raising prices when you're trying to get people to come back to movie theaters. That being said, going to a movie is still the most, even at the prices they're at now, is still the most economical thing you can do in a night out. Ann and I go bowling, and yes, Ann and I go bowling. Neither of us are bowlers, but every once in a while we like going to the bowling alley. You know why? Because they got a big arcade, they have some cheap finger foods they bring to you, and we have some fun playing with our balls. And you take that where you want. But we have some fun bowling, right? So we do that every once in a while. That costs more than going to a movie. We want to run out to, say, Cheesecake Factory and grab a dessert. Like, hey, we had dinner a couple hours. You know what? In the mood for a dessert. We go to Cheesecake Factory, grab a dessert. It ends up costing us more than going to a movie. Heaven forbid if I was a drinker. Going to a bar, have a couple of drinks, that costs more than going to a movie. Now, then you could say, well, John, once you add in the cost of your hot dog and your popcorn and your soda, okay, yeah, but that's you can choose to have that or not have that. You can still just go to a movie. Like I watched, doesn't happen often, but I watched Napoleon the other night, no soda, no popcorn. Granted, I just watched Wish right before that, and I did have soda and a popcorn, but in Napoleon I didn't. So that's completely optional. Having the popcorn and soda and a hot dog and nachos and chicken tenders or whatever it is you want to get, that's optional for you. Just straight up going to a movie is not that bad. And what I would recommend is if you're anywhere near a Regal or an AMC theaters, as much shit as I give AMC, and they deserve it, they have an absolutely incredible membership program. Like I think I spend $22 a month. I think it's 22. I think I could be off by $1 or $2. I spend $22 a month, and that gets me up to 12 movies a month in 3D, if I wanted to, in IMAX, in AMC Prime, in a regular theater, 20 something bucks, 3 movies a week, 4 weeks, 12 movies. It's incredible. So if you've got a partner, I would suggest, you know what, for $45, $50, the two of you could have like 10 nights out at the movies. I highly, highly, highly recommend. And if you live near Regal, Regal also has a very good membership program. It's not quite as good as AMC's, but it's still really good and it'll save you a ton of money. That's it. CJ it's called a Regal Unlimited. Again, it's not quite as good as AMC's program, A-List, but it's still very, very good. And it'll save you a ton of money. It'll give you a lot of nights out for a very, very low cost when you compare it to almost anything else you can do on a night out. Just throwing that out there. But hey, listen, I agree. AD-kin, I've always said this. Going to a movie is an investment of time and money. And you know what? If you feel like Marvel hasn't been delivering the goods to justify you spending your time going out to go see it, then you shouldn't go see it. Let them earn your trust back. Let them let them prove. And by start putting out better product that they deserve to have you go out to the theater. So I don't blame your way of thinking at all. But again, I would say if finances are what's stopping you from going to the movies, again, I would propose that going to the movies is a lot more fun than a lot of other things and a lot cheaper than other things. But look into these membership programs because they will save you a ton of money and give you a lot of movie going. But remember, I'm a addict to movie going, so take what I say with a grain of salt. All right. Let's see here. Daniel Vakura writes, ooh, and I'm running late. Anne's probably waiting for me. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly through these last couple of questions. Daniel, I told Anne I'd be home at 10:30. It's now 10:40. Okay. Daniel Vakura says, the Carl Lynch story is even more insane when he is the one asking for $14 million from Netflix, claiming that they breached the contract. Like what? See, that is a part of the story I didn't go into. So Netflix has canceled the show, right? Clearly, because it's been years. The guy's delivered nothing. He said, I need more money, all this kind of stuff. Now he, who committed fraud and spent Netflix's money on crypto and stocks and sports cars, he is now trying to sue Netflix for breaching the contract and canceling the show. Netflix is going to wipe the floor with him in court. If the stuff that his wife is bringing up in these documents is true, if this forensic accountant's report is true, Netflix is going to wipe the floor with him. And he could be in a lot of trouble, but we'll find out, Daniel. All right. Jasmine Jones writes, I'm actually looking forward to the Percy Jackson series that's coming in December. And I didn't watch the movies, but I'm excited for the series. Listen, I'm looking forward to the series too. This kid, Scoble, he was with Ryan Reynolds in that Adam Project movie directed by Sean Levy that was on Netflix. He was great in that. I never read the Percy Jackson books, but I like the movies. And I think these trailers look really interesting. I'm looking forward to watching it myself, Jasmine. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not. I hope it is, but I'm looking forward to watching it. All right. And our final question today, guys, comes to us from McKenna Box, who writes, Happy Thanksgiving. With the turmoil that we have over the past few months, what are the things you are thankful for that happened during this time? Well, McKenna, you had to end it off on a deep question, didn't you? Couldn't ask, who should fight Superman? No, I love your question. What are the things that I'm thankful for? Well, I mean, one of the things that I should mention is this. With the strikes that have gone on, that have spanned from the beginning of the writer's strike to the end of the actor's strike, like 4, 5, 5.5 months, something like that. And news started to dry up. It was fine at first, but news started to dry up. We were getting no project announcements, no casting announcements, no actors talking about their projects, no directors talking about it. I mean, news started to dry up, and I sat down with the staff and said, just so you guys know, it may come to it that I might have to shut the channel down for a while. Because some of you who've been around long enough might remember this. But during the pandemic, I actually shut the channel down for like a month and a half because there was just nothing to talk about. No movies were coming out. No movies were in production. It had gotten really lean. And I didn't know if we were going to be able to keep going until everything was done. And listen, I talked to a lot of the other movie space YouTubers as well that like were really struggling and asking those same questions. And I know this is going to come across a little bit like I'm pandering, but you have no idea how grateful I am, how thankful I am that we have the community that we have here, because despite the fact that there was like nothing to talk about for months, so many of you guys just kept watching. You kept coming and being a part of the discussion, a part of the community, and a part of the thing we were trying to do. And even though we went like 5 months or more between the beginning of a writer strike and the end of an actor strike, we were able to keep going. And I am thankful for that. I am thankful. I mean, I'm always thankful for the community that we have, but I'm super, super thankful for that. To piggyback on that, I want to, speaking of being thankful and wanting to pay it forward, you guys know every year, I mentioned this on the main show the other day, that every year we do the Adopt a Family, where we work with a city agency that matches us with a family that's having a really hard time to help give their kids a Christmas that they may not be able to give them. And we've had, the last couple of years, we've invited you guys to partner with us, and we've created an Amazon wish list for you guys to go and donate, to buy things on Amazon for the family. I'm going to tell you guys about the family that we've been matched with this year. You can ask Jonathan or Ray this. This is the dead truth. I read over the thing about the new family we got, and I sat in this office as the guys were getting ready to do the show the other day. I sat in this office weeping, like crying for like 5 minutes straight, having read about this family situation, and I wept. And I went out and I sent the thing to Jonathan and Ray. Rob wasn't here yet, so he hadn't seen it. I've given it since to Chris as well, and I walked out to Jonathan and Ray and I said, this year we are going to bless the shit out of this family, because this family deserves it and this family needs it. And we are going to go, we're going to go above and beyond this year. We're going to go nuts this year. So I'm going to tell you more about the family next week. And we're going to launch the Amazon gift list for you guys to help contribute as well, because you guys come through every year so well, and a real good way for us to pay our thankfulness forward. And I'm looking forward to that a lot. And I can't wait for you guys to find out more about this family and to partner with us into delivering to this family an amazing, amazing holiday season. And I'm looking forward to that, and I can't wait. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Very special Thanksgiving Day, more like an open mic episode. But guys, thanks so much for spending some of your holiday here with me. Don't forget to come on back and join us tomorrow. It's going to be still me in this office, but I'm going to have Chris Carr joining me tomorrow as well. We're going to go through some topics. Looking forward to having you guys with me for that. So for everybody involved in our show, thank you guys so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, happy Thanksgiving.